Hello and welcome to Next Level News. As always, I'm your host, Cara Nations. Let's get right to the news. It feels like just yesterday when I announced that E3 would be making a comeback in 2023. The legendary expo for all things gaming promised us last July that they would be back in person in the LA Convention Center for the first time since 2019. Well, that was a lie, as E3 has just been cancelled, and it looks like it has been cancelled for good. The news came as not much of a shock for many gamers after gaming companies like Ubisoft, Sega, and Tencent joined console manufacturers Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft on the list of companies that would not be attending. When you have not even B tier but C and D tier companies like Sega and Tencent saying no thank you to showing up to what is supposed to be the pinnacle of gaming expos, then there's a slight problem. But it's not like we didn't see this coming. Like I said, this surprised nobody. E3 for years has been going downhill, and it just took the pandemic and COVID-19 to take it out back and put it out of its misery. Infamously, Nintendo was the first to pull out of E3 all the way back in 2017, instead choosing to do their Nintendo Direct format. Sony followed suit the next year, and Microsoft followed soon after. The pandemic destroyed any chances of the 2020 show happening, and they had only a digital show in 2019, and of course, most recently, they canceled the 2022 showcase, after they promised to do a live in-person event. Everyone pour one out for E3 as it looks like its time has come and gone. The internet rejoiced when Netflix announced that not only were we getting some new material for the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World series, but we were getting a fully animated series. Not only that, but the entire cast from the movie will be returning to reprise their roles. This includes actors like Michael Cera, Mark Webber, Chris Evans, Brie Larson, and Anna Kendrick, just to name a few. The series will supposedly be an entirely new adventure. What's even more exciting is that Edgar Wright is reprising his role as executive producer of the show, much like he did the critically acclaimed movie. No release date has been announced yet, but Netflix has said the series will be coming soon. Scumbag publisher Electronic Arts will be laying off over 700 employees. The layoff marks a total dismissal of 6% of the entire company. This comes despite EA reporting a gross profit of $1.3 billion last quarter. The company claims to be operating from a position of strength in the report. The same report also said that EA was gaining momentum, that they were hitting their stride. It only took them a few seconds to then mention the layoffs. This comes as no surprise, honestly. What else can we expect from the back-to-back winner of the worst company in the world? While this is becoming even more and more common, with most major companies stating that they are doing incredibly well, but also that they need to let go of thousands of employees across the industry. It's just gross feeling to see a ballooning industry make more and more money, and yet they continue to fire the very people that help them make that money. Alright, this has me excited as we bring back something that we've only done twice. That's right, we are bringing back game reviews. This week, we will be taking a look at the Dead Space Remake. The Dead Space Remake is what you get when you have a dev team that understands what it truly means to remake something. Where many remakes have been blasted with cut content from the originals or changed vital systems to something that's blatantly worse or not in the spirit of the original, Dead Space Remake feels exactly like the original and looks how our mind imagined it all those years ago. Dead Space is the evolution of the survival horror genre, where Resident Evil 4 modernized the genre into a third-person over-the-shoulder action game that contained puzzles and varied environments and bosses, featuring a wide variety of upgradable weapons and health. The original Dead Space made it feel good, introducing a revolutionary mechanic where the best way to deal with enemies is to cut off their limbs, and the even more revolutionary mechanic of being able to move while shooting. Yeah, that was insane for the survival horror genre back in 2008. There are many things that make the original Dead Space special. However, let's focus on why the Dead Space remake is worth your time and money over the original. The last thing I will say about the original Dead Space is that I would rate it at a 9 out of 10. It helped push the genre forward while offering amazing graphics, storytelling, combat, and creating a universe that was so interesting it spawned several movies, comics, and yes, games. So, how does the remake live up to its predecessor? Simple, it outshines it. Dead Space was already a pretty game and still holds up to this day. However, the remake blows it out of the water and will set the bar for how remakes should look in the future. Every hallway, room, and area in the game is breathtaking. The USG Ishimura is quite possibly the greatest looking spaceship in gaming. The key to the graphics is the lighting. The way the game is lit is what creates the atmosphere that permeates the game. Lights flicker and wave, smoke and steam obscure your vision, and the darkness feels ever-growing and gripping. Like if you're not careful, the Ishimura will swallow you whole. I constantly found myself halting my play sessions to just look at things. Everything looked like how my memory remembered it, yet is more fleshed out and higher quality than we ever had in the original. Areas like hydroponics and the mining deck have turned from memories of a grayish-green and a grayish-brown section of the game into fully realized and memorable areas. It took a playthrough of the original for me to understand that I was in fact playing the exact same sections and rooms on the remake. They just had the time and effort put into them that they felt distinct and truly different. While the original had many sections feel like they blurred together, the remake felt truly lived in and distinct. These changes don't just stop at graphical enhancements and recreations though, they also lend themselves to the gameplay. The major change for Dead Space is its fully connected ship. While the original always had you take a tram car to the next level, now you can travel from the very front of the ship all the way to the very back of the ship without using the tram car. While the tram car exists, it now functions as a sort of fast travel as the ship remains fully explorable once the area has been unlocked. With the new open world design, Dead Space Remake does something really smart. It litters the world with areas and places that you can't reach when you first visit the area. The Metroidvania design offers up truly rewarding exploration as you get upgrades to your security clearance and excitedly rush back across the ship to open up the door you couldn't only a few hours ago. On top of that, the remake offers up several side quests that are entirely new to the game. These quests are all simple go here and grab this item, but they offer up tons of new story content that further fleshes out characters like Nicole, and many of the others aboard the Ishimura before everything went to hell. Speaking of character, our former silent protagonist Isaac now talks. The original was famous for having the main character Isaac Clarke never utter a word beyond his grunts, groans, and moans. Isaac only found his voice in Dead Space 2. Fret not though. Isaac is not suddenly a chatterbox that never shuts the hell up. Now instead he simply talks when it's actually required. The story beats are no longer just Isaac being told to do something and he goes and does it like a little lemming. Instead, Isaac offers his insight and engineering knowledge to help solve problems. Finally, the gameplay. Oh boy, is the gameplay just as good as it was all the way back in 2008. The guns feel heavy and powerful. When the necromorphs lose limbs and explode into various giblets, it feels natural. For the most part, the weapons Isaac uses are repurposed mining equipment. They were not intended to be used as weapons, so when they tear through and eviscerate the enemies the game throws your way, it feels beyond gratifying. Another highlight in the gameplay is the change to the zero-G sections. In the original Dead Space, you would hop from wall to traverse the environments. Now you have full control with your ability to go anywhere in the environment. It feels natural, and while the original was never made with this system in mind, it seemingly blends in perfectly in the remake. Dead Space Remake is easily one of the best games that will be released this year. It has the spirit of the original and never strays from its iconic source material. This is easily the definitive version of the legendary Dead Space. The Dead Space Remake easily earns a score of a perfect 10 out of 10. Do yourself a favor and take a trip to the USG Ishimura. It is an experience you will never forget. And that will do it for Next Level News. As always, I'm your host, Cara Nations. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.